Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Perlmutter from Quantum Listing, and welcome to our Wednesday webinar. Today, we have Andrew Flint from Occupier to talk to us about the virtual transaction, which is a very timely topic, and but this is something they've been working on for years. This isn't just let's see where this is going and take advantage of it. This is like something that has been well thought out and is really, unfortunately, made for these times. But let me tell you a little bit about Andrew. Andrew is the co-founder of Occupier Inc. It's a real estate success platform for both commercial tenants and tenant rep brokers. He's got 10 years of experience in New York City commercial real estate and 9+ years at the forefront of commercial real estate technology. Andrew realized the need for modern technology in commercial real estate, experiencing the inefficiencies of the industry firsthand while at JLL. In 2012, he joined VTS as head of business development after being an angel investor and first non-founder user of the platform. Andrew graduated from the University of Colorado in 2000. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, the floor is all yours. You want to take the screen, or I can?
Yeah, share my screen. I appreciate the introduction, so I don't have to do that now, which is fantastic. I thought the way we'd structure this is I'll just kind of run through some slides initially here with the idea that, oops, just let me know if you can see everything. It just kind of gives the framework of like why we founded Occupier and kind of high level what some of like the value props that certain customers of ours are getting out of it. And then I can walk everyone through a high level demo of the platform, specifically how kind of our tenant rep brokerage customers are using it themselves, some real life examples. I think first off, again, thank you everybody for joining. We founded Occupier about 2 years ago with the idea that the tenants and the tenant rep brokers needed better tools to manage their side of the business. We felt that they had been forgotten in this new wave of prop tech, most of which has been really built for the landlord, and that the tenants had been as a result, had been left with a lot of archaic and older tools. So we have found overwhelmingly so that tenants and tenant brokers were looking for better access to tools, better ways to collaborate, communicate with their teams and their clients. And when we kind of really went back and looked at our careers in commercial real estate, my co-founder Matt Jaffoon is on the line too. He was also a commercial real estate broker out of Boston for about 10 years. Is that the tenant side of the business was continuously reliant on older technology, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, in terms of how they went through the process of understanding an existing portfolio from lease details to managing the process through site selection, negotiation, and execution. We launched Occupier in the fall of 2018. Spent the first 9 months building the platform. We initially sold it directly to tenants based around lease administration and transaction management. We launched our broker CRM and transaction manager tool late fall of 2019, with the whole premise being centralizing how you manage your deal pipeline. So across all the different people that are typically involved, like making sure that everybody is up to date on the status of a deal, building tools that are starting to kind of centralize and make the process of site selection more dynamic, and ensuring that people are on top of all the things that need to be done throughout the leasing process, which can cover a significant amount of time, obviously. And then also, once you're done with the deal, how do you track all of those things that you've done for your tenants? How do you stay ahead of the comp information that was associated with the deal? How do you stay ahead of all of the critical dates, whether it be a renewal right or even a security deposit burn down? And how do you have easy access to all of the relevant documents that you've kind of acquired along the way? And all of this is really built around the idea of collaboration. Two quick case studies kind of thing as we've, before we jump into the actual platform. Kind of two core value props. First is really around centralizing your tenant rep business. We've done a case study on one of our teams using us out of Chicago, 5-person team at JLL. Their whole challenge for themselves, given they did not only local market deals in Chicago, but had some clients where they were representing their portfolio across the country, is had a really difficult time of staying on top of their active deals, but also staying ahead of kind of the critical lease information. So whether that were deals that they did in the past, or maybe they signed up a new client where they abstracted that lease and just wanted to start to understand the dynamics of it. So their whole goal was how do they centralize it, get everything off of Excel. They weren't happy with the internal tools that their brokerage firm were providing. So something that was really easy to use and dynamic. For them, they launched Occupier and immediately saw faster response times to their clients, given the kind of the streamlined communication across their teams. And also they were able to proactively stay ahead of a lot of the critical dates that were associated with their clients' existing lease portfolio. Another core piece was around collaboration, and this facilitated actually sort of leveraging collaboration tools in pitching business. CBRE team out of Seattle, 4-person team. We're trying to figure out different ways of differentiating themselves outside of just having good market knowledge. Their whole goal was to, how do I make the leasing process easier for my client, given that real estate isn't their core responsibility? How do we do so in a manner that gives them easy access to information and keeps them up to date throughout? So for them, in addition to just using Occupier in a similar way that the JLL team I just mentioned did, is they were using it in their pitches, and this actually helped them retain a client that had gone out to explore the market and invite other firms in to pitch. And this medium and technology that they used was the defining reason why they kept the business.
Yeah, great.
We are working with teams across the US, across boutique and major brokerage firms. And then we also have another part of our platform is really built for the tenant around lease administration, transaction management, and lease accounting. So we're starting to roll out to retail companies and office users as well.
Great.
So with that, we'll jump into the platform. Let me minimize this. So the core components of Occupier revolve around transaction management and then getting organized around your client base. So one of the core kind of value props that we saw were brokers trying to understand what was happening on their team, what deals that they were working on, and what they needed to focus on. So when you log in, you're immediately kind of brought into this idea of a portfolio-wide view of the deals that you're working on across all the different clients that you have. And I'll come back to this in a second, but I want to give you the other sort of portfolio-wide view for you as a broker or brokerage team, is the idea of insight into your existing clients. So your client view here essentially has a full list of every business that you represent, along with the overview of all the relevant information that you're tracking on their behalf. That may be the number of deals, maybe the number of leases that you're tracking, and the total square footage of that portfolio that you have insight into. First of all, in getting organized around your client is the idea that you as an individual or a team can now essentially centralize your deal pipeline for this specific client, the high-level lease details of the existing locations that they have. Maybe these are deals that you actually represented this client on, or they're just locations that that they have and you understand kind of the key lease details and want to track them. You can start to get really organized around their critical dates. There's a lot of things that brokers are starting to track in here. Obviously, things like lease expiration, termination rights, renewal rights, security deposit burn down, something that most people often miss throughout the life of a lease. But also things like maybe I'm tracking my commission payments. So how do I get reminded to follow up with my landlords because obviously I want to get paid. Key contacts for the client, as well as documents. So the whole idea here is this becomes that central spot where if you want to understand something about this client that you represent, or even a prospect that you're chasing, this serves as that centralized spot where you can come. And the way that we built Occupier is the idea that much of your business may require you to work with multiple different stakeholders throughout. Some that you work on everything with, some that you might work on only a client, one specific client, or a specific deal with. So we built our access rights in here to facilitate kind of the dynamic relationships that run across like the brokerage industry here. So this enables you, as you kind of build out your account in Occupier, the ability to add different users into a specific account and start to share information seamlessly. Something that, again, given the remote nature that we're all living in today, is becoming ever more important across teams. As I dive into the deal, and this kind of plays into this whole idea that virtual transaction is when you think about like a communication tool, you want something where everybody can access the right information, provide updates, or receive those updates. So this pipeline view right here essentially marks all of the critical stages of the leasing process for you, from that earlier stage planning through touring, negotiation, even build out. And then essentially provides you that summary of all the different deals that you're working on. So you can easily see here which tenant you're representing, a high-level view of what the requirement is, the stage that it's in, and then the latest update. So this is for your business a really easy way to manage, all of the different clients that you're representing, but also the ability to filter down. Maybe you want to start to report on maybe a specific market where you're doing deals, or a specific client, or specific stages. You've got this really easy way to find the information that you're looking for, or actually a report for a client that you have on any sort of deal activity that you are working with them on. Kicking off a deal essentially frames that requirement and team that you're working with. So while this is a summary here, when you click in, you essentially have this framework for this transaction. Similar to what I showed you prior with the idea of a specific client having team access rights, so does an individual deal. And we built this out because there might be cases where you want to loop in additional stakeholders and provide them guest access to a deal. Guest access to a deal is something that we provide you the ability to add unlimited users to. And the use case here is maybe I want to add my client to this deal, because this is how we're going to be sharing information back and forth. Maybe this is a local market broker that's helping me with a deal in a market that maybe where I'm not an expert. Maybe this is my attorney that's helping me kind of in those later stages of that lease negotiation. So you can easily define your team and your requirement right from kicking off this deal, and adjust obviously as you go, inviting people in as you see fit. And all of that ensures that the team that you're working on, no matter where they are, can have access and all be aligned around what our goal is in terms of a requirement and when we want to complete this deal by. And then whether you use Slack or some other sort of tool, this almost becomes that sort of Slack channel for you in terms of how you can keep everybody up to date. So if I leave an update here and I click send, everyone gets a real-time email notification about my update. Maybe this is me telling everybody that the landlord's going to provide us with lease comments next week, or we are scheduling a call right now to discuss with our landlord potentially restructuring our lease, given kind of what's going on in the world today. So this essentially kind of provides that framework around that collaboration and communication around what this deal is about.
Interesting.
What we're building out down below in Occupier continues, like what are all of these other things that we tend to do on paper or in kind of fragmented, siloed sort of tools or documents. And this comes in that place again where we can start to deliver on a deal virtually and communicate and do so virtually. First off is the idea around task and project management. The number of things that you and teams need to do throughout the life of any sort of leasing transaction. Some of these are just your own reminders. Some of these can be super structured sort of processes in place that you either have as part of how you operate your own brokerage business, or maybe they're in line with what your clients' expectations are. We often find that when clients have specific real estate teams, maybe they have their own sort of sign-off internally in terms of kicking off a deal, or maybe finalizing any approval on moving forward with a lease. So this can be outlined here ad hoc, one-off as you choose, where you can assign a date to something, or you can actually assign a person to this. But we've also built in the idea of you can have project templates. So the idea here is depending on whether it's a specific deal type or on behalf of a specific client, like an approval process, this is where you can start to customize and templatize that playbook. And start to import them deal by deal, so you're not recreating the wheel every single time, and you're not forgetting to do something that might be integral to moving forward with the deal. One of the areas that we're really excited about is the idea around site selection. The whole idea here is the trying to get people off of taking information out of listing services and retyping them into a static document like an Excel or a PowerPoint and then PDFing it. We are not integrated yet with a listing service. That is the goal down the road, where we can kind of funnel listing information directly into Occupier. But the idea here is that you can start to centralize your market surveys and the buildings that you're touring and the building that you're negotiating here in a manner that becomes easily accessible and referenceable by the broader team, whether it be just your broker team or also your client. Here you can see that for this sample deal, we looked at 5 buildings in downtown San Francisco. We've shortlisted it to 2. And as I click in here, depending on who I am as part of this deal team, I can now access all of the relevant information on this specific building and the space that we're considering. This could be the generic marketing material and photos that you collected up front. More and more we're seeing, prior to COVID, customers, the teams being on a tour and taking photos with their iPhones and then uploading them here. What we've seen post-COVID is that where people need to go actually look at space, maybe it's their broker that's going out to look at, they're taking videos or taking photos and uploading them for the broader team to view, given that you can't have groups of people going to look at space all together right now. You can track your space information. So the idea here is, what floor are we looking at? What size? Is it director? Is it a sublease? What are the floor plans that we need to be able to reference throughout as we evaluate this space? And then some free-form ability to attract the building attributes. So this could be, depending on your requirement, access to transportation. It could be demographic information. Anything that you're starting to collect that is very relevant to this requirement and this tenant can start to be aggregated here. So now what this does is it serves as that spot where you can start to share this with your client, and now everybody can be really collaborative around providing their feedback, whether they like the building and the space or not, or whether they have additional questions that need to be answered as they kind of dig deeper into figuring out whether this could be a fit or not for their business. We're starting to also centralize the idea of tracking the back and forth of the negotiation. So these are things that often get lost in the shuffle or people recreate in Excel. The idea here is that you can start to take some of the basic information that you've already collected around the building and the floor and the square footage, and start to align that with the terms that you might be presenting an initial proposal, but also track the back and forth with you and the landlord. So this gives you that matrix of understanding how the negotiation is progressing from our initial proposal all the way to our latest proposal or final deal terms. Where we are going with this is, again, taking people off of some of this duplicative work and kind of centralizing this ability to share this information. The idea of auto-creating the proposals or RFPs.
1 second, let me mute that guy.
So this is a first phase of this, but the idea here is that you can take this information that you're already inputting into Occupier, you're already collecting anyway these days in terms of your deal process, and generating an actual proposal that you can actually send to a landlord. So we're going to continue to improve on these things and make these more dynamic, and the ability to kind of share this and collaborate across, you know, things like negotiations and even you know, lease negotiations as well, as we evolve as a business. Everywhere on the platform, you'll have some level of document storage. We integrate with Box, Google Drive, other tools out there as well. Again, the whole point here is centralizing your documents on something that is, obviously, we're based in the cloud, it's easily accessible by everybody. In addition to, you can start to compare the latest proposals from each building that you're considering. If you're thinking about multiple options in any deal, you can track any relevant comps and share those with the broader team just to help you kind of give some insight about how you want to be negotiating. And then again, documents here. So when you look at that, you kind of have this now, this centralized spot that can enable people, no matter where they are, to essentially have insight into where the deal is and to perform their sort of function as part of moving that deal through that sort of site evaluation, through negotiation, and ultimately move in. One of the reporting tools that we've recently built is the idea of highlighting all of the buildings that you're actually negotiating on or in that proposal stage. This crosses all of the different clients that you're representing and all of the buildings. So essentially sort of gives that negotiation level view into your business. We did build this based upon brokers looking for us to give sort of reporting tools, their ability to either bring this up on a screen or export this into Excel and provide their clients so they can kind of go through where they stand on each deal and help facilitate sort of that sort of approval process and next step of the process with their clients. And then last, in terms of kind of getting organized across the team, what we kept hearing over and over again is even small teams of 2, the idea is that just staying on top of what should be top of mind or what each other are doing was a problem. You have some people that are writing stuff down on paper, some using their own sort of task management tool. This, aligned with the deal and visible by the broader team, has helped sort of streamline a lot of people's processes. So what you have here is this overview of task management here. What do I need to do, which deal it's associated with, who's responsible for it, and when. And I can navigate through my team here to understand who's responsible for what. A really great way to kind of help each other out and kind of stay on top of the things that we need to do to get a deal done, and finalize, and ultimately make a commission on. And the good thing about this is we really tried to build this in a very intuitive, easy-to-use manner where you can easily navigate back and forth, whether this is a task that's associated with a lease or a deal. If you want greater context on something, you can navigate really smoothly through different parts of the platform. The last piece of this too is what we want to do too is how do we start to get this system to remind you of things that should be top of mind or associated with an account or just a deal. Your settings in here enable you to set timelines of how far in advance you want to be notified of something. Alert timing here is very specific to you. Once you get a deal done and you start to track it as part of your client portfolio and Occupier, your settings are automated here in terms of alerting you in the future when certain things come up. So If you're doing a 2-year deal and you want to be notified 6 months in advance of any transaction, or 6 months ahead of any sort of renewal option that's coming up, this will start to automate that for you. So you can be reminded to follow up with a client and ensure that you're staying ahead of that decision that needs to be made, ideally prior to them thinking about it. And that's going to start to establish you as this, as kind of that industry expert and advisor for those clients. In addition to that, you've got your deal update. So you can start to, this kind of will kick off the idea of when someone updates a deal, you getting notified of what's happening, or like your client getting notified of when you update something, assuming you invited them into a deal. I'll stop there. I think in grand summary, going back to kind of the value props that we set out to deliver, and we've seen people really leverage and take advantage of, is the idea of how do I get organized around my business? What deals am I working on? But also, what's that historical information look like on behalf of my clients, so I can stay ahead of it, and it not be stuck in solely a share drive or folder. And then the idea of collaboration. So whether it's just your team or your client, how do I start to facilitate, how people are used to sort of like sharing information in this, this age of Slack and other sort of communication tools, and one that's specifically built towards real estate.
Yeah, no, this is great because it takes a CRM kind of, but then builds it out for a team and incorporates all sorts of deal data, which is, wonderful. We have a couple of questions that have come up. First is, how is Occupier different from VTS Truva?
Yeah, I was at VTS and some of the early planning of Truva, actually. Truva is an open listing service. So it's the idea behind that is VTS is specifically for landlords, not the tenant. And Truva is essentially enabling landlords to open up that, those available listings to the broader public. Our goal ultimately is can we ultimately interact with tools like Truva, or maybe it's a CoStar or something like that in the future. We need to figure out those partnerships down the road, but how can we potentially integrate with tools where that listing data is now funneled in to you as the tenant or broker that's now starting to share this with their clients. And one step further on that is, there are listing services out there. When you think about a deal and what the deal means to a tenant or a broker, there's much more that's involved. It's planning, it's the site selection, it's that move-in, the negotiation and that move-in process. And that's, we're really kind of going deeper into that portion of the business for the tenant.
Well, I know a listing service that starts with Q that would be interested in working with you on this.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I guess you answered my first question that I jotted down was, does it tie into other software? And it sounds like that is on the roadmap and in progress also. Can brokers use this as a substitute for a CRM? They bring in all their contacts and things like that? Or that's...
Yeah. Every client, we would call that kind of CRM light, depending on what you really need that CRM tool for. If you're using it for like mass marketing and stuff like that, if I were you, I would continue to use the HubSpots or Salesforces of the world. If you're looking to understand that relationship that you have with a client, the client profile page here does give you insight into your deals, their existing lease information that you're tracking, and also contact information. So your name, the company, the email, phone number, all that kind of stuff lives in here, and is also connected to any sort of documents. So if you have an exclusive agreement with a client, all of that stuff can actually live here as well.
Great. So questions are pouring in, which is wonderful. So from Michael Militello, we have, can we export a CSV/Excel sheet from the deal tracker materials?
Yes, you can. So I think I actually have one. I anticipated that. So you can filter down to based upon a number of different things, geography, uh, client, whatever that might be. And then whatever you export is based upon that filter. So I did this one earlier. This is that export here, client name, deal name, address, all of those different things in here that you are tracking.
Very good. Okay. And Tommy Songer asks, I might have missed this, but can you generate marketing collateral, brochures, flyers, etc. within the site?
You can essentially generate a building information sheet here. It's very basic right now. We're going to work on the design of this going forward. This was just sort of like a weekend project for one of our engineers. So this is basic, but the idea here is we wanted to just test out what it would take to deliver something that people can input into a market survey or a tour book if they did want to print something out. But there will be a phase 2 of this, which brings in much higher design, the idea that you can input your firm's logo on it and cater it to how you want to present yourself on a tour or just a market survey.
Yeah, wonderful. I don't know if it's vulgar to ask this question, but what does it cost?
Yeah, we are a per user license. Our standard pricing is $3,000 per year. You can manage unlimited deals, unlimited clients with that. The idea of guest user access is the idea of I'm going to collaborate on a deal with you. So that's if you go back to this tab, we're doing, maybe you're doing a relocation in Stamford, Connecticut. The idea is if I want to include another broker just on that deal or my client just on that deal, that does not cost you anything. So we've tried to make it easy to facilitate that collaboration with other stakeholders. And we also have ways that you can, obviously, the number of licenses that you get, there's scale and stuff like that, depending on the number of users.
Great, got it. Another question from Michael Militello. Under the Manage team, can you customize the permissions and view of the occupier so that clients and attorneys can access the deal?
Right now on the deal, we just launched out enhanced user access rights for our lease administration tools, admin, edit, read-only sort of rights. We are going to launch a different phase here of in the future on which associated with the deal. So far, our user base has been okay with anybody, if they're including, has the ability to add information, provide updates, because it's about collaboration there. But if, one of the things that as we do build this, we're always looking to get feedback from our user base and what they want, and we'd like to understand maybe more specifically use cases where you would want to limit certain information or even read-only rights to someone that you might want to include on a deal.
Yeah. And can you, like, so you said you're sort of working on collaborating or via like Google Docs and things like that. So you can access the Google Doc together now from Occupier, or is that in the future?
Yeah, so this demo account for us right now, for demo purposes, we've attached it to Google Drive and Box. So this is where you can start to pull in relevant, I have to sign in there. But the idea here is that you've got those integrations already in place. So when you do that, you're essentially just signing into your general account, and that will start to give you that level of access to those documents, for your business that you might want to pull into a specific transaction.
Got it. Great. Let's see. Oh, we have another question from Dan. Can you send LOIs to landlords from the platform, and can landlords send them to you?
No, but that is definitely in our product roadmap. we would love to get off of the idea of sending attachments to emails, and similar to like whether we build it ourselves or whether we integrate with like a contract management solution like a DocuSign, something like that. We really envision this as being, you're collecting information. How can I take that in terms of my proposal template, generate an interactive document where the landlord can get a link, redline it, and provide back to you. We think there's a huge opportunity in two ways there. Is that one, you're streamlining that process and kind of normalizing, I think, the information of what you're focused on in terms of that negotiation, but also in terms of the idea of lease abstraction at the end of a deal. If you can structure that data in a nice form for yourself, it becomes much easier for you to then track those lease details down the road, instead of forgetting to abstract it yourself or having to like send it to some third party to abstract for you.
Sounds great. Anybody else have questions for Andrew? Well, while we're waiting for that, Andrew, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the optimal way?
Yes. My email address is pretty simple, af@occupier.com. Please feel free to reach out. We'd love to dive deeper into the product with you, answer any questions, understand maybe what you've used in the past, or ultimately what you really wish you had at your fingertips. That stuff's hugely valuable for us as we continue to build the platform, and we've got an awesome team of engineers that are driving product development.
Yeah. How many folks are working with you now on Occupier, on the development?
Yeah, we have 8 people total. This is our team slide. 4 of us all met and worked together at VTS. Nyasha, as our head of product, was at WeWork for a couple years. Prior to that, he was a lead product manager at Procore. So in the co-construction management space, they're probably one of the biggest. And then we have some Gavin and TJ, our sales team. So some good advisors behind us as well.
Huh, that's very impressive team you got there. Let's see. We have a request for your phone number, and when are you going public?
Well, we're far from going public, and maybe not. We're far from that. Although that would be cool someday. My number is 212-203-9448.
Right. And any other questions for Andrew? Well, you did a wonderful job, so I think you got just the right number of questions there. As people have been going through this whole work from home scenario that we're all sort of stuck with, have you seen like activity on the site increase, because it's something like Occupier that is going to be the glue that holds these deals together at this point?
Yeah, one area that we've seen a major increase, and we added a deal type a couple weeks ago based upon restructuring. So we've seen from the brokerage perspective, a lot of people, that their deal activity, and we've talked to our users about this, is the idea that they're managing not your traditional deal of I'm going to look at a bunch of space, but they're managing the conversations that they're having with their landlords, and using Occupier essentially to communicate back with their tenants about where that conversation stands. The other piece here was just an increase in the user base. So those guest users that are associated with deals has increased dramatically. And that's where we start to see people, whether it's like architects that are getting in the platform to help people think about maybe how they rethink their workspace to account for social distancing, attorneys that are heavily involved in like understanding, can we get rent relief, can we get out of this lease, all those sorts of things. So I was on a call with, from a tenant's perspective, head of real estate a couple weeks ago through this CoreNet group that I'm involved in. And he said that prior to COVID, the typical decision makers in any deal were he and the CFO. And now it's about a 10-person cross-functional team with HR, business unit leads, IT people, all these different groups that now require this need to collaborate more fluidly across any real estate decision that they're making.
Yeah. Interesting. And if people continue to, like Twitter, for instance, announced that they're going to allow all their employees, not only through the end of whatever lockdown wherever they are, but at least through the very end of the year, to work from home when they want, and potentially forever, except from time to time when they need to be in the office. So tools like this are going to be even more important to them as they go through this. Do you see this having applications outside of commercial real estate, or are you going to just focus on commercial real estate because that's the background that all you guys have come from?
Yeah, we're going to focus on commercial real estate. I think there's just so much to do that. In addition to what we're doing that for the brokers, which I walked you through today, we do have lease administration software, and we're releasing lease accounting software as well. Just a lot to do there. And then kind of the offshoots of this, of like real estate being foundational for a business, what are the other areas that we can tie into and potentially kind of provide value? And that could be workspace utilization, that could be for retail, correlations into space versus like the sales that are being driven from it. So we've got a lot to do just on the real estate side of things for a while.
Yeah. We have, let's see, a couple more comments here. We got we have a thank you. And so, and not only a thank you, a very cool exclamation point. So, no exclamation point. Sorry, I didn't mean to overstate the case there. But so that's great. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, Andrew, thank you again. And again, if you want to reach Andrew, af@occupier.com is his email address. And I'm sure he would be happy to field any questions that you have and don't want to ask in front of this esteemed group here. So thank you again, everybody. Be safe. Let me take over the screen for a second and just want to let you know about upcoming webinars that we have. Hang on, because we have quite an array. And while I'm pulling that up, let me also remember to thank our friends at the News Funnel, which I usually do up front and forgot to. The News Funnel is our sponsor for our webinars, and they're a wonderful resource for our industry in that they aggregate hundreds of different news sites and provide us all with timely commercial real estate information. And the market is changing as quickly as it ever has in my 34 years in this industry. And it's nice to have easy access to all of these different sites so that we can form our own opinions. I don't think anybody really has answers yet. And that sort of ties into our webinar next week, which is Let's Get Smart 2020. For those of you who've been to ICSC Recon over the last few years, at our booth we've had Let's Get Smart on Wednesday, where we invite different speakers to come in and talk about important topics to the retail industry. Next week would have been ICSC Recon in Las Vegas, which of course was canceled for this year. And rather than inviting speakers, because I think asking any single person to say, what's going to happen to retail in the next 12 months is kind of an impossible task, But we all have questions, we all have opinions, and it'd be hopefully a nice forum for people to discuss that and uh, see if they can get closer to answers, because and not enough data for real answers yet, but the conversations need to happen so we can get there. May 27th, we have our friends over at Buy Proxy doing a webinar on modernized marketing for commercial real estate. And then June 10th, the aforementioned News Funnel is going to be with us to introduce the News Funnel 2.0. It's been shrouded in mystery, so I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but looking forward to seeing that. June 17th, Placer AI is going to be, well, let's talk about data-driven CRE in a pandemic. Placer has this great technology that aggregates location service information from all of our various devices. It's all anonymized, so it's not an invasion of your privacy, but it tells you how long and people are spending in various downtowns or in various areas, and where they're coming from, and where they're going next. And as real estate professionals, I think we can sort of use that information very creatively. For whoever was asking about the marketing materials, Build Out is going to be with us on June 24th. Eva Baska is going to be running us through Build Out. They do these wonderful marketing materials, websites, and they now have some back office capabilities with Build Out Elite. And then July 15th, Allison Monahan McGuire is going to, and Allison was one of our speakers at the first Let's Get Smart, by the way, so she's terrific, is going to be teaching us about using acting techniques to present as your best self. I think I could use her advice since I'm fumfering a little bit here. And then, of course, I want to make sure I thank Julia from our team who helped us coordinate this. And also Linda Day Harrison, who introduced me to Andrew on one of her webinars. So thank you, Linda, if you're watching this sometime in the future. And with that, I hope everybody stays safe and well and continues to do what we all need to do to stay healthy. And staying healthy is definitely the key to getting the economy going again. So be smart, everybody. All right. Thank you again, Andrew. This was wonderful, and I hope we get to meet in person one of these days soon.
Same. Thank you all for joining.
Okay.
Thanks, David. Thanks,
yes.
Julia.
Thank you to everybody who watched for your time, and because our time is our stock in trade, what I learned in my first day of brokerage class. So it's a valuable resource for all of us. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.